Well, this week, South Africa endured alternating Stage 4 and Stage 6 power outages, causing opposition parties to call on President Cyril Ramaphosa to address Parliament. The United Democratic Movement has written to National Assembly Speaker Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula to call a debate on load shedding. Parliament is currently in recess until the 15th of August. Joining us now to discuss this further is UDM Chief Whip Nqabayomzi Kwankwa. Mr. Kwankwa, thank you so much for your time and thank you for joining us this morning. I mean, what do we hope to gain from a parliamentary debate on this crisis that has been talked about at length, really?
Good morning, Ntokozo, and good morning to the viewers at home. Look, we have proposed a dual-pronged approach in the correspondence to the Speaker. Firstly, we said that there must be a parliamentary debate of this matter because it's a crisis. And secondly, we've also asked the Speaker to get the Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises to summon Eskom to appear before it to account on every aspect of this crisis. But the issue really for us is that during parliamentary debates, we are at least able to make concrete proposals on the table. At sometimes, government considers some of those proposals if they are practical, and that's what exactly what we intend to do, and that's what we intend to use the parliamentary debate for. But also remember, when entities appear before the committee, we have to deal with the nuts and bolts of what the problems are at Eskom. But not only that, we're not only going to talk to the executive management of Eskom, but we usually also engage other stakeholders, relevant stakeholders that are in the entity itself. In other words, it means that the committee would be able to also talk to the unions and get a sense of what the issues are so that the blame game can stop, so that we know exactly who's responsible for the mess. We have even said that once we have had all those deliberations, it should then be possible for us to recommend the removal or that certain individuals be held to account. If heads need to roll, heads must roll in the executive. If we have to put pressure to President Ramaphosa to remove Public Enterprises Minister Kodan, we'll do exactly that. But we want to make sure that we have all our facts on the table. But I think while we do that, South Africans really need a solution to this problem. And that's what...
Now, I understand that you've also made a suggestion to have Eskom executives and management hold before Parliament for a questioning session of sorts at an attempt to, as you've mentioned, get to the nuts and bolts of the problems facing the parastatal. What would an inquiry like that look like, and what would it encompass? I mean, the last time we saw Eskom executives and members of the management team hold before Parliament, it was largely to do with issues around corruption, issues around malfeasance at the parastatal, but operational issues weren't necessarily a top priority at the time. Is the idea that if we can get straight answers from these individuals, then we can likely start getting to the solution-oriented aspect of it and to start resolving some of the problems we're seeing at Eskom?
Yes, that's right. Because remember, when you call people to appear before a committee, you ask all manner of questions. They can be operational, they can be governance issue. It can be any issue that affects the entity. And because parliamentary meetings are public meetings, we'll expect them to account to Parliament in full view of the public, so that the public gets to understand and to hear firsthand as to what the problems are. What I don't like at the present moment is as if there's no Parliament where Eskom will address us via the media, and we, people who are responsible for holding it to account, we only hear about these issues in the media. I've cited elsewhere, without fear of contradiction, that Brian Molefe, yes, I accept that Brian Molefe is implicated in state capture. I accept that, and I'm not condoning that. But there was more transparency, and there was a closer working relationship between the committee and Eskom at the time when Brian Molefe was still CEO. But whether we like it or not, to some extent, it didn't resolve it completely. To some extent, was able to manage reduce load shedding to a manageable extent. And I think at one point they were looking for a surplus megawatts of 2,000 and trying to work on that. Those are issues that we need to talk about. We need to talk about what was done right in the recent past by other administrators. We need to also get ideas from other people in the private sector. not the ones who are interested in destroying Eskom because they want to use renewable energy and they want to make money for independent power producers. That's nonsense. We need to be able to say, South Africans have solutions on the table. What solutions do we have? How can we actually get South Africa out of this quagmire? Because this impacts the lives of people on a daily basis. I mean, even before I left for South Africa, I had a meeting with people who were complaining from an informal settlements that all their electrical appliances have been affected. They have to buy new ones. And no one is talking about the impact, the negative impact that this has on ordinary people's lives. Not only just businesses and the economy, but on ordinary people's lives on a daily basis. And we can't ignore that as politicians, especially politicians who are public representatives, who have the power to summon these entities, who have the power to get answers on behalf of the public from these entities. It seems like all we want to do is to sit back and pretend to be pseudo-analysts. I mean, analysis is fine for political analysts and other experts, but us is to get involved in the nuts and bolts of trying to find solutions to problems.
Well, talking about some of the far-reaching consequences and effects that the load shedding has been having on ordinary South Africans and the economy, other members of the opposition benches, including the Democratic Alliance, have in fact also written to Cabinet requesting that it declare the electricity crisis and Eskom as a whole a national state of disaster. And we know that in instances like that, it does mean that extraordinary funds can usually be dispersed to try and solve or produce solutions to a particular challenge or crisis or problem, as we saw in the floods in April. Is that a call that you would throw your support behind as the United Democratic Movement to have the electricity sector and Eskom declared a national state of disaster?
Only if we'll be able to oversee the allocation of funds that goes to the entity. Because it seems at times that we declare national states of disaster, resources are reallocated to whatever cause that needs to be attended to, and at times there's no proper oversight over the funding. But also I think we mustn't, the declaration of a national state of disaster must not lose its meaning and significance. You'll recall recently, even the committee that deals with KZN floods has been citing informally that even though KZN has been declared some parts of it as a national state of disaster, the requisite resources have not been released to the province. So they've been shifting around money from budget lines instead of them getting additional funding. If it is possible to do that, yes, but we must ensure, as you know, that oversight is actually the purview of the opposition. We will have to collectively with the Democratic Alliance and other political parties ensure that we oversee that properly. And we must not be soft on the Director because he happens to be white when we're very hard on black executives that held Eskom. I mean, we as a party have given him enough chance, like we did to President Cyril Ramaphosa, to actually turn the situation around. And it's also not enough to have executives and members of the board that said they can't be blamed for the mess. We understand and accept they can't be blamed for the mess they're not responsible for, but they have been employed now to sort out that mess. So we need answers as to whether or not they are able to sort out the mess at Eskom. If they are not, then we must get rid of them and hire people who can.
I mean, in a conversation just prior to ours, Mr. Nqabayomzi, we were talking to the CEO of the Black Business Council, about that very calls for Andre Director to resign from his position as CEO of the parastatal. Your thoughts on those renewed calls for the CEO to step down, and whether or not you think the preferred process should be a parliamentary inquiry, as you've suggested, as the UDM, to find out what exactly is the problem and what exactly is going on at Eskom, and only then decide who are the individuals at fault who should, in fact, be asked to step aside from their duties, or to immediately just start making the call for certain executives to already be asked to leave the room?
No, look, as a leader, we have to be fair, and we have to be seen to be fair to whoever is running our entities. Hence, we are first proposing a parliamentary process, because we need to get our facts. We need to understand what we're dealing with. But ultimately, when problems are found, the buck stops with the CEO. It's as simple as that. If for some reason some of the executive members have not been able to pull their weight, the CEO has to take responsibility and he has to be sacrificed at the end of the process. No matter how well he thinks he might have done a good job, it doesn't matter. But at the same time, it can't always be just officials in government that are sacrificed with their problems. We need to have political accountability. Minister Prabhat Gordhan needs to be held to account for this mess. I mean, he also made commitments right at the beginning of this process. It's gotten to the point where you don't believe anything that comes out of government. I mean, how many crisis meetings has President Ramaphosa and his line minister had since they took power in 2019? But the situation has actually gotten worse instead of gotten better. So what is it that they are doing or failing to do properly? And we need to get people who can do it properly for the country, because we can't continue like this. I mean, in another country, state 6 load shedding would have actually resulted in the resignation of the entire cabinet.
Right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much. That's a Parliamentary Chief Whip of the UDM, Nqabayomzi Kwankwa, talking to us there about the UDM's written letter to the Speaker of Parliament requesting an urgent parliamentary debate on the load shedding crisis currently gripping the country.